What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Time and Space podcast. I'm Francis Donald. That's Jordan Hirsch, and we got segment Sean Tandy. Super excited about this week's episode, double episode with a young man who is being recognized as the best player in college lacrosse right now. His name is Michael Sowers, fresh off the transfer portal from Princeton to Duke University. We talked to Michael about life in lacrosse, his journey through the transfer portal. It's really, really great conversation. We're excited for you all to take part in it.
So pumped up. We got connected to Michael through a mutual friend, really a non-lacrosse relationship. And what a great conversation we had with him. We can't wait to share this with you in this double episode of our podcast.
Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as all of our social channels.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Time and Space podcast. I'm Jordan Hirsch. That's Francis Donald. We got Big W, Wayne, in the house. We also have Sean in the back there. We are really pumped up to welcome Michael Sowers from Duke University as our first player guest. Wow. He is the first person we've had as a player on the show, and we figured, why not get the best player in the country for our first guy? Why not? Let's just shoot him a text, see if he'll do it. And he was kind enough to do it. Michael, congratulations on being recognized as the top player going into the season. We're excited for you. Couldn't go to a better guy, so good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I'm pumped up to be here.
So we're going to start off with a fit check. I'm going to throw it over to Francis.
Well, I'm a very trendy guy, and tie-dye seems to be in these days. So got a little tie-dye action. As most of you know, it came from Lululemon. Guess, you can usually guess that. Michael, so I'm a big Lululemon fan. I don't know if you are if you've gotten into that game yet, but a lot of my clothes come from that place. So just a little tie-dye number, a little white hat just to balance out the aggressive orange shirt. So keep it simple.
Well done. Well done. It looks good on you, as always.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Michael, what do we got today?
I can't say I got Lulu stuff on. I haven't caught the trend yet. I'm not a trendy guy. I got the I go for the comfort over the swag. I got the classic sweats. I got my turf cleats on. Ready to go. Yeah, ready to go. We got little running tomorrow, so I got this outfit ready to go. I'll just wear it tomorrow morning.
Nice. Functional over fashion.
Sure.
I like that. I like that. Well, my Legends hat made a comeback. My daughter took it out of the closet, so decided to throw it on my head and bring it back down. I'm also wearing a Mix Jim from Rocky t-shirt, little ode to Philly for our buddy Michael here. And also because a couple weeks ago I picked Rocky as my top movie in the draft. So I had to show that I also like Rocky because I wear so much Friday Night Lights stuff. So everybody's looking clean. Very excited for a great show.
I'm really excited that Michael's got the turf dogs on. Ready to step out onto the field.
I'm always ready. Nah, they're versatile. You can do anything in turfs.
Yeah.
So you sleep with them on, so you could just jump up and get going? Or?
Nah, I'm not that crazy. They're sitting next to my bed though. I sometimes I just keep them tied, slip them right on. I'm out the door. Get every extra minute of sleep I can.
So Michael's from Philly. We kind of got into that a little bit. I'm going to start out with a very simple question. Do you think Philly lacrosse gets enough respect?
I think now it does. I think that, you go back 10 years ago and it might have got left out of the equation. You think of lacrosse hotbeds, you think Long Island, you think Baltimore. And I think that over the last 5 years, just with the guys that Philly has produced, and that's not, I mean, Philly's produced some legends going all the way back from what I can remember to Johnny Christmas would be the first one. And then, like, you go guys like Jordan Wolf, Joey Sankey, the old Haverford teams. Philly's always produced legends, but I think we just started getting some respect, like, within the last 5 years.
Yeah, I remember being a college coach and sitting down on the sidelines and watching Team Philly, Rebel Elite, LB3. Did you play on any of those teams? On any of those club teams?
So I was probably 9 years old when those like club programs were just getting going,
Okay.
And I remember just like idolizing those guys, like the old Rebel Elite teams when like Joey Sankey would play up as like an 8th grader and like dominate the high school scene, like a bunch of Hebrew Horsham guys like Eddie Coombs playing on that Rebel Elite team. The old LB3 teams are right around my hometown. So I played for, bounced around a little bit, played for like PYLA, played for Team Wet Bandits, which was run by Colin Ambler. And then I played for Dukes and Mesa Fresh in high school.
That's right. Yeah, Dukes and Mesa Fresh. That's great. And tournaments like, well, the NXT group that put out the Philly Showcase, that's probably one of the things that really started to get coaches into Philly, was running that event and really putting those kids on display. Were you ever a part of those events?
So to be honest, I hated those events. I think the only showcase that I ever did was the Jake Reed showcase in 8th grade. Yeah. And I remember leaving that showcase, and I was like, told my dad, I was like, I'm never doing that again. Like, if I don't get recruited, I don't get recruited, but like, I'm not going back to another one of those showcases. So I never did any of the local ones. Yeah, never really did any of the national ones.
That's an interesting point. What was it about the showcase event that turned you off?
I just think, like, it wasn't really lacrosse, especially at that time, and now I know they're running a little bit of a different fashion where you're kind of, like, taught skills and you're taught an offense, and then, like, you play in much more of a team setting. But back then, it was just, like, the biggest guy runs through 6 people, and everybody's like, well, look at this kid. And for me, like, that wasn't me at the time. Like, I was smaller. I was fast, but not that fast. I definitely wasn't strong. I had a good stick. I knew the game well, but I wasn't really standing out. And I definitely wasn't having fun. And I think for me, that was the biggest thing. Like, if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to play well. And so at that point, I was just like, not worth it.
Interesting.
That's a really mature way to look at it, in my opinion. I think, knowing what you like about something, especially with sports because they're so emotional, knowing what's important to you at a young age, being able to, say to a parent, if I get recruited or not, that's not the type of lacrosse I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. So that's really cool, and it shows how much you love the game, and it or I should say, it shows how and why you love the game. It's really interesting. Now, I mentioned that your father was a coach, and probably still is a coach. What was it like playing for your dad?
It was it was great. It definitely was tough at times, but not just coaching me. I mean, like, my childhood memories were growing up on the sideline of lacrosse in the spring, and then high school football in the fall. And, like, being in the locker room around those high school kids, like, I idolized all those kids. And I think that, like, from a young age, I mean, from the time I was 5 years old, like, I was just, like, drawn to team settings, like, riding in the back of the bus with guys, like, going to, like, Wawa before games in the guys' cars. Like, yeah. I was probably so annoying to these guys, but, like, they were awesome to me. And, those are the memories that I had, so that when I got to play for my dad, I kind of seen how he got after some of his players and stuff. But it was definitely like a different relationship, and I think he was always hard on me. But it got to a point where he saw how much I loved the game and how hard I worked at it. And I think that it got to a point where, he kind of just let me go on game day and let me do my thing. And what was cool was, I think a lot of times, and this wasn't all the time, but he coached me more on my effort than the outcome of plays. Where he would get after me more for like not riding hard or not going after a ground ball or like, shying away from contact. Where, if I turned the ball over or I missed a shot, it wasn't, he wasn't coming down on me then. So I just learned so much from playing with him, and he taught me how to work hard and really how to love the game. And I mean, those are still things that, I carry with me today.
Was it difficult socially for you to be the son of a coach, or did your teammates understand your position pretty well?
It was tough, and it's a great question because I was playing with all my best friends, and so how we kind of got our group together in third grade was the first year of like the township football team. So we were the youngest age group at the time, and they picked the varsity team, and my dad was the coach, and I grabbed all the best athletes and gave them lacrosse sticks, and it was like, you're playing football in the spring, like I'll see you guys out for lacrosse in the spring. And so that group, we kind of grew together, and we were all best friends, and throughout middle school and then through high school. And it was tough because, I know that like sometimes people would get frustrated with him, and, they wouldn't see eye to eye. And, I was in this like weird middle area where like, my dad's the coach, but here's my best friend in like a tough spot, like he's not starting, he's complaining about the coach, like that's my dad, so it was definitely tough at times, but, I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I don't think those guys would either. I mean, we had such a blast, just awesome memories.
It's really refreshing to hear you talk about like playing with a core group of guys in third grade and really like growing with them.
Yeah.
And the effort to like keep that group together, that's something that it's tough these days. Kids are getting pulled to these different club teams and, club. I don't know how it is in Philly, but certainly in Dallas and California where I've been, club starts to creep in and pull kids apart. So it sounds like you guys had a nice tight knit group.
Yeah, we did. And that made it like really special. I mean, we lost one, we lost our goalie, but we kept that core group together and, had a lot of success on the football field and then on the lacrosse field. So all great memories.
Awesome.
Do you think that kind of your view and scope of showcases maybe stems from that idea of, I've played with my team, my core guys, my best friends, and then you kind of get into this mix where you really don't know anybody, and like you had said, like the tendency is to try and really just go and do your own thing, and it's just not what you're used to, and maybe just not what you're into?
Yeah, I mean, another great question, and I definitely think so. I mean, I love the game. I love lacrosse. It's my favorite thing to do, but more than anything about the game, I love the team aspect of it and the team environment. Like the games are great. After being in the locker room after games, it is just as fun. Before games, and I think that being and it's so cool being in a college atmosphere because those are your best friends and everybody has the same goal. Like everybody's working towards the same thing all the time. And for me, that's just kind of, since I was little, what's always drawn me to sports is just you have a collection of guys, everybody's, best friends for the most part, and, you're all striving towards the same thing. And so I definitely think, I know that to get recruited, you have to do stuff like that, but, I would play in a high school game 20 times out of 20 over any showcase or club game.
Nice. You talk about the locker room, and that's something that actually came up in the last couple podcasts that we did. And so I want to ask you this question. Did you guys have a song in either high school or coming out of Princeton? Do you guys have like a song that you played when you won and got back to the locker room? Do you have that anthem?
It varied. We didn't have like one true anthem. It kind of would just be like whoever got in there first was like playing.
Would set
like,
the tone.
yeah, exactly. For me, I would always be like a big like R&B guy, like old school Drake. After games, people would be like house music, techno. Like we were going through a little stint where we would play like Country Roads and everybody would sing.
Nice.
So I feel like that's a classic. So that was kind of our post-win song. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Is it weird for you, Francis, that like he said old school Drake? Like I don't even. That's like making me feel so old. Like old school Drake. Like to me, it's all new. Like, it's all new stuff.
Michael, is music part of your routine, your pregame routine? Is it an important part of it?
It's actually not. I don't like listening to music at all. Mostly because I don't like I just like being in like a nice calm state going into games. Like football was way different. It's like, all right, let's blast music and let's just get amped up to try and go hurt people. But lacrosse, it's much more of like a flow game. Like, you know, you have to be even keeled. Like mistakes, it's a game of mistakes, you know. And if you go in over energized and over excited, you know, when that first mistake comes, like it could be a huge crash in terms of your energy level and your mental state. So for me, I just like keeping it real basic. Like I'll go out, listen, like no music. I'll go out like with a deep hole and just like mess around and like bare feet before games, like just to kind of like show myself, like remind myself like the game's supposed to be fun, you know, like I'm just out here just like I was when I was like 7 years old, you know, just mess around in the backyard.
Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you know, we talked about it, I guess, a couple episodes ago. We had a whole episode about routines and pregame and postgame and things like that. And it's so interesting to hear different players take on the pregame routine. And I think it just goes to show there's no right or wrong. There's just what works for you. And, you know, for me, if I, like when I was your age, if I were to go out with a deep hole with bare feet, I probably would have played terrible. That's just me though, because I wouldn't have been able to keep it together. But that just, you know, that's really cool. I think that's how it can work. It can work so many different ways. No music though. You just go do your thing.
I should say, so this year, like the seniors are in charge of the pregame music every year, and there was the old teams that my dad used to coach. They used to always come out to Flower by Moby. And so, and so for Princeton this year, like I picked the Come Out song, and that was our song. So like that song would just like take me back to like me being 8 years old on the sideline, like watching those dudes run out of the tunnel. So that was my pregame music right there.
Nice.
Well, I'm glad I asked, because that's, you know, again, that's exactly what we talked about, how one song can snap you into a different mindset. Tell us a little bit about, and I love hearing about you as a young guy, being on the sideline, being in the locker room, being really a part of all those teams that your dad coached. It's something I can kind of relate to in a much different way, and I think it's something, but it's same idea. It really drew me to sports because of that team aspect. My mom was a coach. Funny enough, that's how Wayne and I met. Wayne's a bit older than me. And when I was a kid, Wayne was on the basketball team. My mom was the cheerleading coach. I spent all my time with the basketball team in the winter, all my time with the football team in the fall. And seeing those teams, you know, it made me want to be a part of sports. So I can really relate to that. And I love how you talk about how you idolized the guys on your dad's team. maybe guys on those teams, or maybe anybody in any sport, who do you feel like you tried to model your game after growing up?
I mean, I literally think I could name, like, from that era, from when I was like 8 years old to 13, I could name 100 college lacrosse players, and I was just like watch religious. Like, I could, if there was like a 2-minute clip on YouTube of them, like I could literally tell you the sequence of the plays. Like I would just like watch those guys. But no, it definitely started like with my dad's teams. I mean, the original was like this guy Duncan Swayze was an attackman, graduated in 2005, went on to play at Notre Dame, and like from our area, like Montgomery County, there's not too many people that are going to play big time Division I. So to see him when I was like in first grade, go to Notre Dame, that was like the coolest thing ever for me. And then, all the way to Ryan Creston and Eddie Coombs. I mean, I watched those guys from the time they were freshmen, and Eddie specifically, the things that he did on the lacrosse field, and the way that, watching him play football and then bringing those moves over to lacrosse, I tried to do that too. I tried to watch like LaShawn McCoy highlights and just Barry Sanders highlights, and just watch how those guys move, because that's what it looked like Eddie was doing, and that's still stuff that I do today. I mean, one of my favorite guys to watch is Jerry Jeudy, receiver for the Broncos now, receiver at Bama, and like his footwork is so translatable in lacrosse, and so I'll try and model like my split dodge after that or something. But in terms of specific guys outside of the HH teams, I mean, my favorite growing up were the Philly guys, Jordan Wolf, Joey Sankey, and then Mikey Powell was always my favorite, just because like he played with such confidence. He was just like electrifying, so quick. But my favorite part about him was like it always just seemed like he was like oozing with confidence, like there between the legs, behind the back, like. It might look so stupid if he drops the ball, but like he doesn't care. Like he's out there having fun, and he's in my opinion, the greatest of all time for a reason.
That's great. That's awesome to. We're going to ask you about that, right? Because you, at least at Princeton, you were wearing 22, and so we're going to ask you. Did I have that right? Were you wearing?
Yeah, I was 22 at Princeton. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna ask about that influence, but it's really great to hear you talk about Eddie Coombs, and so again, when I was recruiting, Eddie was one of those guys that I was watching playing for. I believe he's playing for Rebel Elite at that point, and I remember, I was coaching at Nazareth Division III program, saw this guy, maybe a little undersized, but athletic as hell, right? And so, as a D3 coach, I was like, let me try to give this guy a call. And so I remember calling up at their house and asking and leaving a message for Eddie, and just watching him play at least one particular summer at a couple different events, and really, feeling what you're talking about. Like, this guy is just playing lacrosse differently, right? And so it's great to hear you talk about him, and I know somebody that's close to your family and close to your town. So
I
definitely a great
my,
reference.
I always got my Eddie hat with me too. I'm always carrying it around. So
nice.
Definitely. One of my favorite players growing up, somebody that I idolized on the field, but just as much off the field, how he carried himself. I mean, from my standpoint, one of the greatest to come out of the area.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I don't think we're going to disagree with you.
Yeah,
I would not disagree with that. We're both huge fans of Eddie. And obviously that kind of continues that connection between the Crestons and the Coombs. I've known them for a really long time, and just awesome people. And clearly those two guys would be great role models for a young guy, at least when you were a young guy. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I would add, I bet every guy that you just mentioned, if they get a chance to see this, they're going to say, whoa, that's all. Whoa, Michael Sowers, he modeled his game after me. That's pretty cool. So that's a little full circle moment for you, which is great. And I know you're like one of the most humble kids I've talked to in the brief time we've gotten to chat. So you're not going to think much about that. But that's a really cool thing that some of those guys that you idolize are probably thinking to themselves how talented and special of a player you are. So take that to heart for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So for the, for Mike, somebody like Mike Powell, who graduated, we were freshmen in college in 2004. That was his senior year. So we watched a lot of him. You talked about his confidence and certainly he had that, but what, particular skill that you saw out of him or, change of direction? What was it that really got you hooked? This is my guy. Or was it the whole package?
It was, the whole package, he was just special, but the footwork was just insane. That. And I was always somebody that, I meant it, I always watched the football athletes and tried to mimic their footwork. And then you watch Mikey Powell and it's that's it right there. That's a running back playing lacrosse. That's a slot receiver playing lacrosse, and the way he could shake people, the way he moved behind the goal. He did a front flip in the game. I don't think anybody's ever doing that again. But he just the way that he can move. It's one of those things you can't emulate it because it's just so special. It's so sporadic in the moment. But watching that certainly gave me confidence. Hey, if I work hard and I work hard on my footwork and I'm confident, then I can have my own flair similar to the way he did. So I think Mikey Powell's the GOAT without a doubt.
We won't disagree with you there either. We're big. This is probably our fourth or fifth episode, and we don't go through an episode without talking about Syracuse lacrosse. So in one way or another.
Yeah.
And intentional or unintentional, it just keeps happening. I don't know. It just keeps on happening. So I got to get confirmation on if this is true or not. I heard that Ryan Creston and Eddie Coombs took you to a game once, I think to watch Mike Powell when you were a kid, and lost you in the stadium. Is that true or false?
To be honest, I don't remember the specific moment. I went with those guys. Probably took me to more times than they would have liked, more places than they would have liked. But I believe it. Once I was a kid that I was just wandering. Once I got in the lacrosse stadium, I was trying to check out behind the goal. I was down on the fence. I was up at the top of the bleachers. So I was all over the place. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I'm going to take that as a yes. They definitely lost you. There's no question. Teenage kids taking a young kid to a game.
Is Lyle Thompson an influence of yours? He's been a big influence on the game and particularly giving permission to use, one hand in a variety of ways. Have you adopted any of that into your game?
I personally haven't, just because I don't think that stuff can ever be mimicked. Mikey, if Mikey Powell's a GOAT, Lyle's not far behind him at all. And that's my personal opinion, but I don't play much like him. But that isn't to say, I watched every single 2014 and 2015 Albany game that you can find remotely on the internet. I think that similar to Mikey Powell, just the free flow when he plays and how much confidence he has and how much fun it seems like he has. But another thing that I always loved about Lyle, watching him, a little bit more subtle, was just his reaction to bad plays. When you have so much flair in your game, naturally things are going to go wrong. He's not perfect all the time. But that stuff doesn't faze him. I think in lacrosse, a lot of the times you see guys slamming their sticks or clapping their hands or something that kind of shows their frustration. But with Lyle, it's just nothing seems to faze him. at
Right.
any point. He's just out there playing lacrosse. He's out there having fun. And for me, as fun as he is to watch, that was always my favorite part about watching him.
Let me ask you this. We talked about how you tried to maybe mimic or replicate things that football athletes did, lacrosse athletes did, just people who you thought moved well. What are some things that you did or maybe you still do when you're doing training on your own? Like any type of workouts that you're doing, where does your focus lie?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I the first thing is definitely my footwork. I think that's one thing. Every time I go out, whether I'm jump roping or using the speed ladder, I've always tried to work on. But I mean, since I was little too. I mean, I'll take it back a little bit. We used to play street football, and I was the youngest one. I was in first grade. The kids were like fifth, sixth, seventh grade, and it was like, the only way I was surviving out there is if I could make people miss. And so, like, from an early age, like, I had to have good footwork. And from that time on, that just kind of, like, became my thing, my identity. Is like, in basketball, like, I'm going to have a nasty crossover. Like, I have to, or else I'm not getting by anybody. And so, today when I'm going out, it's still the same thing. It's ladders, jump rope, but, I'm trying to play basketball as much as I can, work on my crossover, same thing as a split dodge, and I'll try and run routes against my cousin who plays football up at Shippensburg as much as I can, just to get different, aspects of sports. I think sports are so translatable, and there's a reason that I think that multi-sport athletes have had so much success at the next level. It's just, another way to kind of work on your specific sport in a non-traditional way than you would get, like, practicing on a daily basis or going out and dropping the speed ladder. So those are all things that I just kind of try and work on a daily basis.
It's a great perspective. And I wanted to ask a couple things. One of them is about approximately, for people who are listening, what was your approximate height, weight in high school? Just so people can understand. You talk about yourself being a little undersized, so what are we talking about here?
Man, I mean, undersized freshman year would be an understatement for sure. I was probably like 5'4", 115 pounds, 120 pounds soaking wet. So I was undersized, and then sophomore year I got into lifting a little bit. I gained a little bit of weight. And then junior and senior year, I was probably around 5'7", 5'8", and then I actually grew like 1.5 inches in college, so I was pretty happy about that. Yeah, I was excited about that. But I was 7th grade, 8th grade, I was the smallest kid out on the field by far.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever have any pressure to specialize in lacrosse? I mean, you talk about being a three-sport athlete. I was a multi-sport athlete. Jordan was too growing up. Did you ever feel that pressure, or were you always just like, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to enjoy it?
It's a great question. I never did because of my dad. So actually, when I was younger, I would beg my dad to let me play lacrosse in the summertime. And he never did until I was in 6th grade. He would actually take my stick after our last game, and he would lock it in our attic. And I wouldn't touch it again until after basketball season. Like, he would bring it out after football, and I would start shooting around in the backyard again. But he would literally lock my stick, hide it from me, just because he kind of understood the importance of not specializing and enjoying other sports and learning from other sports. And, I'm so glad that he did that, because then when I finally got to my junior and senior year of high school, it was like, all right, I'm not burnt out at all. I haven't even scratched the surface of what I can be here. Now let me start putting in the work. And then you get to college and you're putting in, 6 hours a day down in the facilities. And that's just the minimum. That's what everybody's doing. Like I still had kind of a fire inside of me. Like, hey, I love this. Like, I want to go out and work extra at it. And, I attribute a lot of that to, my dad and him locking my stick away. And so, I'm super grateful for him, because if it was up to me, I would have been playing all the time.
Wow. I've never heard of the physical locking away of the stick, but that's a good way. It's a good way to get it done.
Honestly, what I'm thinking about right now is Francis had this, like, in the very beginning, we started shooting some stuff. Francis had this idea that his children were going to have this plan of, like, not playing real lacrosse until, what did you say, like 8th grade, something like that?
Yeah,
like they were only going to do swimming. Grade. Yeah, like he's like they're only going to do swimming and
gymnastics.
I don't even remember the other thing, gymnastics. And then in 8th, and in my head, I'm like, that sounds insane. But now, like, maybe a little bit of what you did and a little bit of what he did,
we might on the Sowers.
We might have something. Yeah, we might have something here.
It should. I mean, it's crazy. Like, kids, nowadays, like my younger cousin is going through it now, and like you see, like, these travel teams, it's like 2033. It's like, can those kids even walk? So I know times have definitely changed, but I can't emphasize the importance of playing other sports and enjoying other sports. It's just so important, in my opinion.
And sometimes not being great at other sports, right? And,
absolutely.
So you talk about football and basketball. Were those sports more challenging for you than lacrosse, or did you find it challenging in different ways?
They were definitely challenging in different ways. I mean, I love football. If you asked me when I was, 9 years old, what I wanted to be in the fall, it would be like, I want to go to the NFL. If you asked me what I wanted to do in the spring, it was like, I want to be a professional lacrosse player. So, the NFL dream went out the window in like 7th grade when I was like 5'2", wasn't cracking 5 foot. I was like, I don't know about that. But football just, for me, it was just always a different mentality. It was I was actually a quarterback growing up, and then when lacrosse became a little bit more of a commitment and I started having to miss the summer season for football, I kind of transitioned to wide receiver and cornerback. And as a corner, like, you're out there on an island, and especially against some of the guys in the area, I wasn't running a 4.5 or I wasn't 6'3", so I kind of had to have that mental edge and put myself up on the pedestal with them and believe, like, listen, I can cover these guys. I might not be 6'3", but I just watched, an hour of film every night. I know exactly what you're going to do before you even do it, and so, like, that just kind of brought, like, a different understanding of sport in general, but also just that mentality of, like, listen, it's me versus you out here. I'm winning. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you do. It's got nothing to do with you, but, like, I'm winning. I'm going to win this matchup. So, I love football. I could talk about it all night.
Eagles fan, I'm assuming, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So you're an Eagles fan. Yeah. Jordan's a Giants fan. I'm from Dallas. I'm a Cowboys fan. So we're, 3 parts of the, we'll just call it the strongest division in the
I was
NFL
going to
right
say,
now.
we're all hurting this year.
It's the strongest division in the NFC East.
Yeah.
So it sounds like prep is huge for you. It sounds like you take your preparation really seriously. Talking about watching film for an hour in football when you're in high school. Do you feel like that's something that you've just always enjoyed? It's just part of your routine? You like watching film, or is it more like, I know I'll feel confident and feel good going into a game, just having that edge?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think, I've always enjoyed that aspect of sports, but more so, and it's kind of like almost like my personal philosophy. What I try and live by is, like, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can, Monday through Friday, and, like, whatever happens on Saturdays happens. I'm just going to go out and enjoy it and, like, live with the results. And I think at the time, that was subconscious. Like, I didn't even really realize that that's what I was doing. But I would walk out there on Saturdays and it would be like, like here, if they come out in their ace package, I know he's going to run, a go. If he catches the ball over me, like he catches the ball over me. Sometimes you got to take your hat off to him, and it's the same thing in lacrosse where it's, I shot every day before practice, after practice, worked on the things I need to work on. And, if I go out on Saturday and I get stoned with a minute left in the game and, I lose us the game, that's fine. But I know that I did everything that I possibly could, Monday through Friday. And, like, that's sports. Like, sometimes that happens. And you had to be able to live with the results. And I think that sometimes it's obviously a lot easier said than done. But for me, it's kind of the way that I've tried to live and how I've tried to, mentally grasp with sports, especially when, like, you all you want to do is win and play well for the guys around you.
I think that's a really mature perspective.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, this kid's, is he human? What's this kid's deal? Like, is he human? This is like such a breath of fresh air, honestly.
Do you, what's the conversation like with you and your dad? Are some of these things that you are saying are what we would classify as like coach speak, right? And obviously you grew up with a coach in the household. Were there a lot of extensive conversations between you and your dad, or is it like absorbing, just seeing him in action and just processing the game differently?
Yeah, I think it was more of the latter, just kind of absorbing, the game and absorbing sports. And I also think, like, he was so hard on me, like, at an early age, that I kind of needed to adopt that mindset. I would get so worked up in games. In sixth grade, I remember, like, him pulling me out and, like, me throwing all my equipment on the sideline, and, like, he's telling my mom, like, come get him, like, he's done. Like, my mom comes and gets him, and, like, I'm crying. It's sixth grade, like, it's so embarrassing. My mom's got to take me out in front of everybody. So, like I said, like, subconsciously, I think that I just slowly started to adopt that mindset, heading into high school, where it was like, listen, I'm just going to do as much as I possibly can, and, like, if it works out, it works out. But, like, I know that I took care of what I needed to take care of, and I just got to live with the results at this point.
So, again, something I was told. I don't think this is a rumor this time. I think this is legit. I was told that lacrosse IQ for you has been kind of on the higher level since you were a young kid. And the conversation I had was, wasn't Michael Sowers the ball boy on Ryan's team, talking to Kim Creston? And she said, I would call him more of an assistant coach. And this is when he was like 8, right? So, and now I'm gassing you up a little bit, but that's fine. All right, that's good. That's good stuff. So it's film study, obviously. It's absorbing, a high level of lacrosse at a young age and really diving into it. Do you feel like that's something that did come naturally to you young, or it really was like a process over time when you started to realize, like, oh, I really understand things a little differently?
It's a great question. I mean, I think that, it was one of those things. I was just around the game at such an early age. And I just think, I can literally, as long as I can remember, I was in a coach's room. Just like listening, even if I wasn't paying attention, like I was just like absorbing the information. And, over time, in like 7th grade in math class, like I'm drawing up lacrosse man up plays, and then like showing my dad after school, or like, like drawing up like a zone defense or something like that. And I naturally started to love that aspect of sports because, I saw that, like, my dad, coaches can't play in games, so, like, he has to impact the game through strategy, and I thought I always loved that aspect of it, And so, from the time I could remember, I was just, drawing up plays and listening to what the assistant coaches were saying. And then, by like 5th, 6th grade, like, I remember, like, I would be tugging on my dad on the sideline, like, yo, they just did this, like, check out this. And like, he would like shoo me away, like, get the hell out of here. But, I definitely, I love that aspect of the game. And football was very similar. I mean, I love the strategy part of the game.
Do you think that you could play defense at the Division I level right now?
For football or lacrosse?
For lacrosse.
So this is actually a running joke that I have with a lot of people. I said that if I was 2 years younger, maybe 3, I would have got recruited to be an LSM. I would have played LSM, or I think that I could step on the field right now. This might be me being a little cocky, but I think I could play. I think I could play D mid right now. It's just a different mindset, but I think I could play D mid right now.
Are you the attackman that's willing to sprint in the hole if you're at the top of the box and there's a turnover? Like, do you even think twice about that, or are you in there like, I'm playing defense, whatever?
So last year, I'll knock myself a little bit. Like, early on, I was definitely a little lazy, more lazy than I should have been in terms of my riding. And last year, I took a lot more pride in it. And, any opportunity that I got to jump in the hole and play D, like, I was taking it. I mean, like, me and our D mid might be even running to stop a break, and I'm like, yo, you stay back. I'm going over, So I would always joke with the coaching staff, like, listen, 30 seconds left, game on the line.
Yeah,
they got the ball coming out of a timeout, like, I'm going in the game. Like, put me on their top mid. That's what I want to do.
I love it.
It's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so speaking of defense, give us an idea of what a defender guarding you might do that jams you up a little bit. So what might a defender do to you that might give you a little of a hard time where you have to adjust?
I think the biggest thing is just being smart and, just knowing your angles and knowing the game and, understanding. Not necessarily like you're going to try and stop me or an attackman at every single point, every single move, but more so just forcing the low percentage shots. I think that as attackmen, we obviously have things that we're comfortable with and things that we're not comfortable with, especially in terms of shooting the ball. Everybody has their sweet spot that they love shooting from. Everybody has, their sweet spot form that they love to do. And I think forcing me or whoever you're covering away from that spot into a low percentage shot, for me, that's always the most frustrating because, I might have to take a fading away shot running away from the goal, and that's not a high percentage shot at all. And to me, I think that, that's the best D you can play rather than, physically trying to just dominate and shut down every move. I think that that's definitely the tougher thing to go against.
I like how you answered the question, but didn't give anything away about your particular successes on the field. Very, very well done. Very well done.
He knows. So it's a great answer, and it's funny. So I wanted to make sure I watched some recent film of you just to have a little more perspective. So here's the thing. You got a two-way go. You use both hands. Not that common in all lacrosse right now. A lot of people are dominant one hand. Two-way go. He shoots multiple angles. So he has overhand, three-quarter, underhand, both hands. Set shot. He can stretch the field a little bit. Those low-angle shots that you were talking about, I saw you score a bunch of those in some of the film I watched. He dodges from X, high wing, and what I would call that like razor pick area, like goal line extended, right? So a lot of the film I'm watching, I'm seeing all this stuff and thinking to myself, all right, so if you want to be the best player or you want to be a really dynamic attackman, your tendencies are really tough to figure out. So when you're saying take you away from those places you want to be, I pretty much saw you score a goal from every spot on the field. And I won't make you answer where the places are that you don't want to be pushed to. But I will ask you this. Out of those spots, where's your favorite place to operate with the ball?
I mean, really all of them, depending on the scenario. And it's a credit to our offensive coordinator, our Princeton offensive coordinator, Pat March, and then our offensive coordinator last year, especially Jim Mitchell. I mean, he really challenged me when he first got there to kind of expand myself as a player and develop some of the things that I was uncomfortable with. Shooting from the outside, dodging from above the cage, shooting with my left hand. Things that traditionally I haven't had to do just playing behind the cage. I worked extensively on it with our other assistant coach, Chris Aslanian, and it just helped me tremendously. It was being able to move around depending on what they were doing, how they were defending us. Really just gave me so much confidence because I knew that for everything that they did, we had an answer to it. It was a credit to the guys off ball, something that, doesn't come up too much in like any of the articles or anything like that. But, another thing, I mean, those guys set such great picks in those spots that, I was pretty much coming off with my hands free every single time without even having to dodge. My head was always up, always able to look at the defense because of those guys.
So do you like to operate out of like 2-man game or mirror play? You like to operate out of that a little bit too, or it's all good for you?
It depends on the situation. I think, the 2-man game made a lot of sense for us. One, because we had great pickers. Which, is somewhat rare. I mean, our guys were like superior at setting picks. But at the same time, it makes off ball, takes two defenders out of the play. So now instead of reading 5 above the cage, you're only reading 4, which really changes the whole dynamic of like an off ball defense and really puts people in binds, especially if you have good chemistry with your guys. We got to a point where it was like, I know exactly where those 4 guys are going to be before they even move. So all I have to do is spot feed it, and those guys were doing a great job finishing the ball. And, we were just in a great flow with our offense.
So another thing that I kind of picked up on watching a little bit of the film was, and I don't know if this was something I wanted to ask, if this was something you maybe don't think about, or something maybe you worked on between your junior year and last year. It seemed like in that high wing area, you really played off the bump a little bit. And what I mean by that is like engaging the defender with your body to kind of cut him off, if you know what I mean?
Yep.
To make contact with him.
Yep.
And that's like another element. It is like a football type move, like a bump and run, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's a basketball move, like cutting the defender off so he can't beat you to the spot. So now you have the ability, right, to shake and go by him, or you lower your shoulder and kind of play off the bump. I saw a lot more in the tape I saw from last year than 2 years ago. Not sure if I just missed some or not. Is that something you worked on a little bit, like in between that time, or just something that developed over time?
It was definitely something that we kind of developed and something that we identified early on that we felt like we could have a lot of success with. And to your point, I mean, in basketball, I was always like a huge pick and roll guy. Like I loved it. Even though, I loved like isoing and crossing over, I just felt like, you always get a look out of a pick and roll. You're either getting like a mid-range jumper, or you're getting a big man roll into the basket. And in lacrosse, it's a similar thing as long as you run your guy off of the pick, brush shoulders. And so for me, sometimes dodging out in space, it's a nice thing is that, he might be trying to play up and press you a little bit, but all you have to do is bump him at the last minute into that pick.
Yes.
And then, they're either going to switch and we're going to get a matchup, or he's going to try and fight through, and now we have a step. So it was just kind of something that developed over time, but something that we felt like early on we could have a lot of success with.
Wayne's smiling right now because he's talked about pick and roll in basketball. He's the roller. Wayne's the roller every time. Rim runner every time. I'm gonna nerd out a little bit more just because we can. Has the dive becoming legal changed the way you view your dodging angles, or not really?
It did. I mean, I was always I loved the dive. When I played for the U19 team and it was legal out in Canada, I mean, I was like diving in the most unnecessary plays. Like, it looked so ridiculous, but I was just always diving. And I think, like, as I got older, I kind of realized that I was relying on it a little bit too much. I mean, it really is an all or nothing play. It's either the ball's going in the back of the net or it's a turnover the other way. So I tried to veer away from it a little bit, but it's definitely something that I loved.